Before we start that what are the features of the feminist method, we have to understand some simple things. First of all, sociology is mainstream sociology. That means the theorists like August Comte, Emile Durkheim, Max Weber are all male. That means sociology is from the very beginning preoccupied by male theorists. There are no instances of female sociologists among classical thinkers. So all the classical thinkers are male. It is obvious that if the classical members are males, their perspective to view the world, to analyze the society is also from male point of view, That's why sociology is known as mainstream sociology, M-A-L-E, mainstream. We already know about functionalism. We already read about comparative method. Now, it is another method, that is feminist method. Just after comparative method, we get another method, that is feminist method. Now the question is, what is the necessity to introduce another method in sociology? The necessity to introduce a feminist method is that there are some perspective or there are some aspects which are missing from the very beginning in society as well as in sociology. So to encounter that specific aspects, we have to use a new method that should be unlike functionalism, that should be unlike mainstream sociology, and that is feminist method. That means feminist method will capture those specific aspects which are not present in previous society. So, which are not present in those specific aspects which are not present in classical sociology as well as functionalism will be captured in feminist method. Here, we will first begin with the stages in the development of a feminist approach to sociology and then see what should be seen methodologically as some common features. So before we start to read about the features of feminist method, first of all, we have to know about those stages and then we will discuss about the features. Okay. The first stage involves, initially the emphasis was on sex difference and the extent to which such difference might be based in biological properties of individuals. So here we are starting from the stages of sociology. In the first stage, it is argued that the emphasis was on sex differences and the extent to which the differences might be based in biological properties of individuals. We know as an individual, there are differences between male and female, and this difference is only the biological difference. There is no societal difference at all. So the first stage is related to that there is difference between male and female, and that difference is only the biological difference, not any kind of other difference except biological. In the second stage, the focus shifted to individual level sex roles and socialization, exposing gender as the as the product of specific social arrangement, although still conceptualizing it as an individual trait. So in the first stage, we learned that there is a difference between male and female, and that difference is only a biological difference, nothing more than that. And in the second stage, the focus shifted towards individual level sex role. Yes, there are some roles of every individual in every society, in every stage, or in every period, and that role is assigned to their sex roles, to their sex, and the socialization is also assigned to their sex. That means there are roles and socializations are different for males and different for females. Exposing gender. So here we get another thing, that is gender. So we get that gender is a social arrangement which has no relation with biology. There are only difference between male and female, that is biological base. That means sex is created by God or the creator, and the gender is fabricated by or created by society or arranged by society. But still, in that second stage, it was considered that gender was individual trait. That means if a female have specific roles which is basically which are basically forced upon by society, that means that is specific individual role. We have to understand that what we understand by stages. Stages means the first stage is not mature enough. The second stage means that it is a little mature from the previous one. The third stage means it is the highly mature stage. Same like that in sociology after 1970, when feminist stages were written by sociologists, then it is considered that the first stage has some problems regarding feminism. The second stage has some problem regarding feminism. That means they are treating gender as individual trait. But no, gender is not individual trait. Gender is forced upon by society. Gender is constructed by society. Gender is present in social order, social class, and that specific thing was cleared in the third stage. The third stage is the hallmark of the third stage is the recognition of the centrality of gender as an organizing principle in social systems, including work, politics, everyday interaction, families, economic development, law, education, and a host of other social domains. That means gender is not an individual trait. It is organizing principle and which is very much present in work, politics, everyday interaction, family, economy, development, law, education, and all other social domains. So gender is society, created by society, and gender is very much present in society. It is not any individual trait. As our understanding of gender has become more social, so as our awareness that gender is experienced and organized in race and class specific ways. We can now usefully discuss some key features of the feminist method. Now we already got the 3 stages of feminist method. Now we will start. So from the beginning, features of the feminist method, the underlined or highlighted portions, only the highlighted portions we will read, and we will leave other portions which are not marked or highlighted. To start with, we can clearly distinguish between the traditional sociological approach to gender and the feminist approach. So we will distinguish between traditional sociological approach to gender and feminist approach. And they already said that in most introductory sociological textbooks, gender is introduced as an individual attribute still now, and gender inequality as an outcome of childhood socialization. Okay, so that is a misconception. That in various sociological books we get that gender is a individual attribute, gender is the outcome of socialization, but no. In contrast, current feminist thinking stresses the far greater input of the division of labor, that gender is not the fruit of socialization. Gender is the fruit of division of labor. Gender is the fruit of power. Gender is the fruit of social control. Gender is the fruit of violence, ideology, structural and interactional basis of inequality, not only between women and men, but among women and men of diverse social classes and racial ethnic groups. So wherever we will go, we will get gender. So gender is not an individual trait. Gender is not the only result of socialization. Gender is present in everywhere, in every racial ethnic groups, in every social class, in every structure. According to Maria Mais is a famous feminist. According to Maria Mais, she stressed the need for replacing the practice of value-free research with a conscious bias towards women's struggles for social change. Secondly, she made a case of conscientization of the researcher as well as the research conscientization or conscientization. S or Z we may use. Conscientization means it is a Marxian concept that if we want to know something, that then we have to understand it in its in-depth nature. Only by knowing it fully, we can understand that specific thing. This notion is known as conscientization or conscientization. So, according to Maria Mais, uh, we don't need a value-free research because sociologists argued that every research in that society is value free. If they are value free, then what about women's struggle? Then what about women inequality? Then what about women's harassment or any kind of women oppression? For example, if you are studying sociology from last 2 to 3 years, then is there any kind of theory where you get the examples or instances of women oppression? No. But they are telling you that it's a value-free research. If biasness towards man is a value-free research, then we don't need a value-free research. We need a conscious bias towards women's struggles, a research method. So, according to Maria Mais, the research method of feminist approach should be biased towards women. Just because what we know as value free is not value free in real, we already knew that. And the second is she made a case for conscientization of the researcher as well as the research, that we have to know the whole thing only to understand it better, only to describe it better, only to analyze it better. So the researcher and the research subject should be conscientization or conscientization or zation carefully. Feminist sociology, the first. Feminist sociology argues that research designs were based on men's experience. Yes, now we already know that feminist sociology argues that research designs of classical theory of functionalism or any other theory were typically based on men's experience. There are no perspective or aspect related to women. There are concept of uh, head of the family. Who is the head of the family? The head of the family is always a male member. We all knew that. How we all knew that the head of the family is always a male? Just because that is the specific notion of every society. There are some households or there are some families in rural area where the female females are the head of the family, but in general, but in urban social area, by head of the family, we already recognize a male person. Now, the female is always recognized as housewife. That means a housewife means who don't work. Now, the housewife concept has little changed by the feminists. So, rather than housewife, they use the term housemaker to identify that they are not idle or they are not working. Um, they are not working to break the myth that they are not working. That's why they are known as housewife. They use the term housemaker. Uh, so there are another controversy regarding work, that their work in their household, the household chores, are not considered as work at all, just because according to us, the work which is economically connected, only through those works we get salary or payment or wages are recognized as work. So women are working in their households are not getting any type of wages or salaries. That means they are not working women. Those are some specific notions, or those are the result of man's experience of society, which we have to rectify. There are some specific works which are known as women's works. There are various type of examples. Uh, Delhi would be Bengal and toy making, Zardozi assembling of electronic parts that are subcontracted to poor women in the slums. So there are some specific works which are meant to um, define that, which are meant to describe that those are women's work. That is the examples of some men's experience towards society. And the last line, the idea that housework is also work is still considered alien. That we always assume that housework is not work. That's why there are various kind of codes are available, which men's and all, and sometimes females use. What do you do in house all day? The whole day, what do you do in house? I am working in office. I have many client meetings. I have done many various client meetings, or I am busy the whole day. But you are free just because you are at house. So those codes reflects, or those codes symbolizes that in our society, the work of the housewives is not considered as work at all. Feminist sociology is against a separation and reification of a division between the public and private. We already know that there are differences between public sphere and private sphere. By public sphere, we mean that that is something ungendered. We think that public sphere is ungendered. We think that public sphere is meant to symbolize both men and women, that public sphere is for both men and women. But is it so? No. We already know that public sphere are meant to symbolize the men's world, and the private sphere is means to symbolize the woman's world. The private sphere means the house, the kitchen, the specific portion which is gendered, and the public sphere which is by some people are thought to be as ungendered, but that is not ungendered at all. That means public sphere and private sphere both are gendered notion. And by private sphere, we always think, we already know that by private sphere we always mean the household and kitchen, which is for only for women's, and the public sphere is for men's. Another examples are that we already know that high level corporate jobs, which is illustrative for this, would be the fact that male professionals would be preferred in the corporate sector, and the argument given would be that men are more committed to work while women would be distracted. There are some controversy that corporate sector jobs or high profile corporate sector jobs are only for men, just because men's are more very much committed towards work and women's became very much distracted. Why they became distracted? Why women's became distracted? Just because they got married, they have family pressure, or they may conceive a child, a baby issue. That's why they became distracted. That's why the corporate sector is not for females or women's, right? If is it so, then what about men? They also get married. They also have family pressures. They also uh, mm, uh, they not conceive babies, but they also have babies. So if these conditions are considered as distractedness for women, so why those conditions are not used as distractedness for men? The significant point is that men too get married and become fathers, but the dominant assumption is that the private sphere comprise the cleaning, cooking, shopping, childcare, attending parent-teacher meet, looking after the sick would be the woman's work. So we already take those things for granted that cleaning, cooking, shopping, childcare are for women. That's why they are became distracted. That's why the corporate sector jobs are not for them. So it is again reflecting the societal view towards women. The public sphere of work for women cannot there be recognized until the private sphere is. In developing countries and increasingly in the developed ones, two spheres are part-time or full-time female domestic workers. Sri Lankan, Filipino, and Bangladeshi women, among others, are migrating across national borders. The urban family, the urban middle-class family always use a, what should we say? What we should say, a domestic worker, domestic helper, female domestic worker. We have to notice that all domestic workers are female in nature. There are no concept in middle class families, in urban middle class families, about the concept of male domestic workers. The domestic workers are always female, so they are not able to job in corporate sectors. That's why various women from Sri Lanka, Filipino, Bangladeshi migrate each and every year to work in middle class families as domestic helper. So there are specific jobs or specific works for women that is not high salaried or high status or high profile jobs. They are also related to the work, they are also related to work just like caring, rearing, uh, etc. We already know that the nurses, the concept of nurses, the concept of beautician, we already know that those works are for women, and the part-time jobs are only for women. Last point, the feminist sociology recognizes the diversity of gender statuses in the social order. That is the main point, that the diversification among male and female, the concept of gender is not inherent in family. It's not inherent in individual. It is inherent in the whole social order. Gender categories are not homogeneous, as mentioned above. The domestic worker functions as the bridge. Domestic workers means that specific female domestic workers who work as the bridge between the public and private domains, or she facilitates her employers' move into the public domain by taking over the latter socially reproductive work, filling the gap as it were between the two domains. Although domestic service is low in the hierarchy of occupations, its easy availability throughout the world has caused economically vulnerable women, with or without particular skills, training, or education, to migrate to distant places, both nationally and internationally. Feminist researchers endeavors to emphasize diversified experiences and practices of women in terms of their race, age, ethnic, historical backgrounds. According to that specific para, the only job which a large number of women have, the job of housemaker. They are the only economic base for those women. They have nothing to do except helping urban middle class household females. Feminist research India, it makes a conscious effort to include more than to exclude. Sociological concepts such as class, status, honor help in examining women's place in society. The last line, sociological concepts such as class, status, honor help in examining women's place in society. So, by that feminist method, we can understand that what should be the place of women in society, what should be the honor of women in society. They are not bound to work as um, they are not bound to work only as domestic helper. There are some other works or jobs for them, but they are socially restricted. Those specific jobs are socially restricted for them. That's why they have no access towards education. They have no access to their status. They have no access towards economy. Indeed, the belief that women move only on marriage or with families rested on a set of patriarchal assumptions, such as that women are primarily and solely homemakers, that they are not independent workers, and that therefore migration for them can only be as accompanying members of the migrants, again believed to be the adult male breadwinner. Facts suggested otherwise. In terms of the scale of migration, women and children outnumber adult men. The last para suggests us that if a woman wants to migrate for lifetime, or if a woman wants to migrate permanently, then then she is not able to do so. Just because, according to our society, a woman can migrate only after her marriage. Before marriage, a woman, for her working purpose, cannot migrate. She can't go anywhere before marriage. After marriage, she can go anywhere with her husband or single or individually. But before marriage, she can't go anywhere. That is the another point which bounded women to marriage. And we already know that marriage is the tool of patriarchy. So if a woman get married with another male person, then he has no choice but had to do the same work which she is doing for her lifetime. That means to do the household chores. That means she has no economic base. That means she has no access to other economical or social work or employment or jobs. Those are some features of feminist methods. That means feminist methods try to discover those specific notions which are inherent in our society and which are very much difficult to understand or difficult to capture. So that is features of feminist method.